Hi everyone, I'm Tally, this is Farrell and we're bored of it. And here we have a fantastic entry into one of our favourite subgenres of board games, which is heavy complexity Euro games about energy production. We absolutely love it. Yes, that's right. Today we are reviewing Salton Sea.
And Salton Sea is a worker placement hand management game for 1 to 4 players. In this game, you'll be playing as a corporation who extracts brine and processes it into lithium while trying to create some geothermal energy along the way. And this is going to feel somewhat thematically like games such as Pipeline and Barrage, these heavy Euro, very brutal games. Please note, this was a review copy that we were provided by the publisher.
Salton Sea is played over a variable number of rounds, with a round ending when all players have used their workers. A round end doesn't mean too much aside from getting said workers back and refreshing the card marketplace. In a round, it will see players take it in turns to place workers on action spaces, either on their own player board or on action cards from their hand. Action cards have the same actions as the player boards, just better. Why not only use action cards then? Well, because of the spicy twist at the core of what makes this game brilliant. These action cards also double as your liquid cash. So you're in the situation where these cards are crucial to getting anywhere in the brutal economy of Salton Sea by helping you conserve resources or be more efficient, but you must regularly give them up in order to pay for what you're doing.
Navigating this system is kind of the core of what the players are doing, and it gets more exciting because of 2 key complications. The first, the fact that the money only comes in 1, 3, and 5 increments, and if you spend it or overspend it, you're not getting any change. The second is that the higher the value of the money, the better the action. To the extent that on the $5 cards, the actions are so good that they could become a key cornerstone of your entire strategy, which is quite cool. And kind of navigating this is the core of everything at Salton Sea. And it just forces such tough decisions, and players always feel torn between 2 worlds. And it's something we absolutely love.
Okay, that's great. But what are you doing in Salton Sea? Well, a lot. It's the type of game where there are like a dozen different actions and systems which are all neatly intertwined, which you are either free to ignore or go into hard. As there are so many, we won't go into the details of each one, but it's worth noting that they're mostly the work of seconds, and something we particularly enjoy is how rapid the turns are, which keeps everyone engaged, even though it's a fairly solitaire Euro.
The core system of the game that you're going to be trying to do the most is to extract brine and then convert that to geothermal energy, lithium, or both. This is because having those items will allow you a lot of freedom in the game, because you can either sell them, which will give you a lot of cold hard cash, which of course gives you new, better actions and thus opens up the options available to you. Or you can use them to fulfill contracts. Now, contracts will only give you a piddly amount of money, but they will give you a lot of victory points. So that helps you get towards victory. Now, when you sell, you will sell to one of the 3 companies on the main board, which will make their stock price go up. Then, in essence, what this is going to mean is that the more the stock price goes up, the more stocks in that company are worth in terms of endgame victory points. And of course, you can then, with all that money you just got from selling, buy stocks in the company for victory points at the end of the game. Now, Salton Sea is a point seller type game where you're going to gain some points during the game from different sources, but you'll also do endgame scoring for a variety of elements. The game ends when either 2 companies have been sold to too much, for lack of a better term, or when a certain deck has run out of cards.
As a whole, Salton Sea is a wonderful example of the heavy Euro genre. There are numerous elements here which speak to really clever design and make this game a real delight to play. We already spoke about the action cards, but another thing we find really interesting is how it plays around with the actions themselves and keeps what could be some very basic actions which could easily turn boring very interesting. Firstly, this is done by the same action being altered across the different values of money, but the research cards also heavily play into this.
And these are cards which you can purchase, and they're all relatively unique. But essentially, they're going to give you one of two things. They're going to be a one-time use, very powerful action, or there'll be a permanent addition to your player board that will kind of a little bit less powerfully, but still in a positive way, alter one of the actions in some way for you. And the first thing is that, much like the $5 cards, the right research card at the opportune moment can really give you a massive boost in the game and kind of form a turning point, which is nice. But we also like that they make, like you said, these kind of regular mundane actions interesting in some way, and that they allow players to build their own niche in the game. We're particularly enamored with how brutal the economy is. I mean, for a start, at the beginning of the game, even if you could manage to get a bunch of resources together, you can't even store them until you begin upgrading your warehouse. Then, just to get brine, the most basic resource you want, you're going to have to pay for a drilling license, you're going to have to drill, and then you're going to have to pay again to convert it to a better resource. Now, this means that if you sell, you're likely only getting a tiny bit of profit. If you fill a contract, you might be making a loss. And it's just so tough to get anywhere in this game, which is what makes it feel so rewarding when you have these moments where you might have a round or 2 rounds, when you have a fistful of brand new action cards, you're flush with cash, you can do whatever you want, but it never lasts long because you end up putting that all back into the machine of industry.
This brutality gives weight to every decision you make, turning Salton Sea into a non-stop white-knuckle experience. What's particularly insidious is how you're often incentivized to cut corners for more profit at the expense of points. Brine claims with more rocks can often be cheaper, but they will damage your drill, losing you points, or maybe shutting it off entirely. When converting brine, you can actually get double of whatever output you're choosing, but you'll have to severely damage your machinery, and repairing anything is not cheap. These decisions are so spicy and so fraught, we can't express how much we enjoy them.
Although we obviously have a very fond spot for Salton Sea, it's not a perfect game. There's some areas which we like less than others, in particular the stocks, and to us it just feels much looser than the rest of the game. It's something where you have to invest a lot of money to potentially get victory points at the end of the game, but you never have that much money spare. And your stocks that you can buy will only ever be worth anything if multiple players sell to the same company multiple times throughout the game. So it's a big risk, and you don't really, even if you kind of max out that track, get necessarily so many points. Then maybe you want to get the bonuses that you get as you move up that track, but they are very rare and they're completely random and they're not worth the monetary value that it takes to get to them. It's just a little bit of a strange one because it's kind of the only area in the game that feels like it's very affected by player count, because the more players you have, the more people will sell, the more these trackers will move, and the more victory points the stocks will be worth. So it kind of suffers at 2 player count like we've been playing it as.
Also, not big fans of the objective cards because they hit a weird trifecta of often being quite difficult to do naturally, being a little bit boring, and not providing nearly enough points to balance out the level of effort involved. At worst, they are goals which, in our opinion, can often be negative to pursue because they require valuable resources to complete, whilst not matching any coherent strategy.
Final thoughts. Salton Sea is going to be a surefire addition to our collection. It's going to go right in that bank of mean energy games, which is our favorite. And there's just so much to like about it. I just love, all the tough decisions we mentioned, but I think it's all boosted by the fact it comes in this tiny box, which is a massive space saver. It's almost something you could take away with you if it wasn't for the fact that you need 2 hours plus to play this. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Just the whole production I also really like as well. It was relatively easy to get to grips with. I think even though it's a heavy Euro, it's coming from the tough decisions, but I think there isn't too many like cascading actions, which can cause a lot of other games to be kind of high barrier to playing and entry. Whereas this, every action is pretty simple. I also like how it's very snappy as well. Sometimes I'm not even ready to go by the time my next turn comes around. You're like, yep, done. And that's also, I think, quite unique in this genre as well. So yeah, definitely would recommend picking this one up if this is the sort of thing that you're into.
Yeah, so exactly the same. If you think you'll like this, then 100% recommend it. I think, as alluded to at the end of the review, it's not perfect. There are some little things that I think seem a little bit loose to me, like the stock market. I think there's so many actions that, it's like contracts. Maybe they could have just been fulfilled when you complete them rather than it being like a separate action.
Yeah.
There's a lot of actions that maybe, it could have been a bit sharper there. But something we just absolutely love playing. We absolutely love the brutal decisions, and you just never feel like you're really in control or have a lot of resources, a lot like Barrage. In the same way.
For sure.
So that's our review of Salton Sea. Again, we very much recommend. If you have any questions, please ask us. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And we really appreciate you watching. See you next time.
Bye.